On April 10th, Camp Lejeune hosted the Onslow County Special Olympics. Mentally and physically handicapped athletes gathered for a day of friendly competition.
The Special Olympics is a program started by the Kennedys years back for people with mental retardation to help for their esteem and give them a chance in life, and a program to build their morale, basically.
The track and field events included a 50-meter, 100-meter, 400-meter, and relay races. There was also a softball shot put.
Oh yeah.
18-8.
For some, the main event was a ball pushing contest, wherein Olympians compete to push the ball the farthest.
I think that it gives athletes a sense of well-being. You have to feel like you can win sometimes, but you can't always win. And that's what the oath is all about. You know, do my best. If I can't do my best, at least let me be brave in the attempt. And I think it brings out the best in all of us, whether we're athletes or whether we're volunteers.
Set!
The brave Olympians all received an award for their effort, and all, athlete and volunteer alike, left with a sense of accomplishment. PFC Catha-Garrett reporting for LCTV 10. Visitors came aboard Camp Lejeune last week for our quarterly capabilities exercise. The event, called CAPEX for short, demonstrates the Marine Corps' combat potential to the civilian community.
We demonstrate to the public, to other general officers, distinguished visitors, basically the United States Marine Corps' capabilities, the uniqueness, the concept of from the sea, and we basically show the taxpayers the equipment that we have and how we use it, how we would employ it.
Major General Burnt, the commanding general of the 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force, served as a guide for the day's events. The VIPs started their day at Onslow Beach, where they witnessed an amphibious landing and got to take a close look at an LCAC. Next came a riverine operation, an exclusive capability of the Marine Corps. After some Marine-style chow, the guests were treated to a Harrier landing on Lyman Road, followed by a Marine riot squad dispatching an unruly crowd. The day climaxed with a company-sized operation at the Mount facility. The guests looked on in awe as Marines employed squad tactics, fast troping, and sniping.
It's great. The CAPEX has a great impact on the community. It shows them what their tax dollars are doing. It shows them how the Marines are unique in that our focus is on the Marine. It's not on the equipment. And we equip our Marine to do our job, the job that we want him to do. It's not, the emphasis is not on the equipment. And the biggest thing that they come away with, and I've heard it time and time again, is that how impressed they are with our Marines. So it shows their tax dollars at work, and it's a good show.
PFC Morgan Catha-Garrett, LCTV 10, Marine Corps Base, Camp Lejeune. The 2nd FSSG has come up with a plan for keeping all Marines combat ready. It's called the Battle Skills Training School. Here, Marines are refreshed in the basics of warfare.
Battle Skill Training School, 2nd FSSG, is a school that is designed to teach the basic skill of combat to the 2nd FSSG, non-03 MOS Marines. When they arrive here, first we introduce them with the land navigation. We give them a basic land navigation course, and then we will give them a practical application, a day land nav, where they will go to the RV area here in Camp Lejeune, where they will locate point boxes.
The week-long course climaxes with a defensive FTX, where the students put all their skills to the test.
The Marines enjoy that, and that's when the motivation will come out. They will count me up. We will issue them blank ammunition, and they will have fun for about good 24 hours.
Really what is expected of the students here is that they actually take the knowledge that we're putting out and we give them and that they actually put it to use. And it's real easy to tell who actually paid attention and who hasn't. It's very simple. We see it, whether or not they complete the taskings that we put in front of them or not. It's hit or miss. There's no in between.
At the end of the course, you will see that sense of accomplishment that they had done something great. To me, sometimes seeing that from this 0151, this admin clerk, is worthwhile. Every year he come down here, it's like a big reminder, the reason why he joined the Marine Corps for, to defend the nation, to be a Marine, okay, to go to war.
PFC Catha-Garrett, LCTV 10, Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune. If there's one thing Marines know best, it's fighting. Yet most Marines receive very little close combat training. That's why here at the Camp Geiger Martial Arts Instructors Course, motivated Marines are learning the ways of the Marine Corps' new martial arts system. These Marines, specially selected from their units, are in training to become close combat instructors, capable of passing on their knowledge.
It's an integrated fighting system. It's not any specific style. Karate stylists are more punching and kicking. If you use one style, you end up in a cold weather environment. When you're on ice, you try to kick above your head, you end up on your back. If it's primary grappling, you end up in a swamp somewhere. You're grappling on the ground with somebody, you end up drowning. So it's got to be integrated to where you can pull a bunch of different things together.
Striking, throwing, joint manipulation, ground fighting, and weapons use are all major aspects of the course content. The Marines are also educated on less tangible subjects, the mental disciplines which are usually found in traditional martial arts.
It's basically the core values, the honor, courage, and commitment. When you start teaching ethical things, morality, and things like that to Marines, then it becomes more of an ethical warrior instead of just an individual running around with dangerous techniques.
As of May 1st, all Marines graduating from boot camp have a basic 10-belt qualification. The current goal is to have every Marine qualified by the end of 2002. PFC Morgan Catha-Garrett, LCTV 10, Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune. On the 21st of May, Marines from Camp Lejeune traveled to Mayport, Florida, where they went aboard the USS John F. Kennedy, an aircraft carrier. These Marines were part of Special Purpose MAGTF 10, formed to undertake a public affairs mission in New York City for Fleet Week 2001. During the 2.5-day voyage, the Marines attempted to adapt to their new environs, exploring the ship and finding places to PT.
I think the ship's pretty sporty itself. It's pretty big, it's huge, it's pretty overwhelming, really.
During the day, the various units on board rehearsed the displays and demos they would be presenting in New York. In their off time, Marines were hard-pressed to find things to do, though getting chow was a major activity.
I have a new respect for the sailors now. I mean, if for nothing else, they can chow line.
While en route, the ship presented an air show for the many guests on board. The show featured the F-18 Hornet and an incredible sonic boom. When the ship arrived in New York Harbor, Marines manned the rails and gave the city a hearty hello. The next day, the gates broke open and the entire populace of New York descended upon the JFK, eager to learn about America's military capabilities. The Marines were ready with their static displays. They had brought Humvees, an LAV, a tow, and assorted small arms. Popular with the children who came on board was the camo painting station, where devil dogs made mini Marines. Here's what some of the New Yorkers had to say about the displays.
I think the Marines are doing really good right now. I'm very happy with everything I read about the Marines, hear about the Marines. I think they have, out of all the services, probably the most clear idea of what their mission is, where they're going, and what their direction should be.
They're great. They're amazing. They're brave. And I'm glad they're out there protecting our country.
Just keep up the good work.
I think they're cool.
Events continued throughout the week at the nearby Intrepid Sea Air Space Museum. The non-lethal weapons platoon demonstrated their riot control capabilities. The martial arts platoon showed off the Marine Corps' newly adopted system of close combat. Also popular were the various sporting events. Marines competed with crews of participating Navy and Coast Guard ships in basketball, arm wrestling, softball, and other sports. Perhaps the most popular event was the tug-of-war competition. The Marine Corps team took second place, losing only to the NYPD. At the Fleet Week cook-off, Marines pitted MREs and tray rats against the best gourmet offerings of Navy chefs. After several cancellations due to weather, the Recon Detachment finally got a chance to show off the Marine Corps' real combat potential in a crowd-pleasing raid demonstration. Cobra attack choppers provided cover while a CH-46 Sea Knight deposited fast-roping Marines onto a barge. After a short assault, the Marines tied themselves up and spy-rigged away. The show was well received by the spectators.
Super cool.
One of the final events of Fleet Week was the Memorial Day Parade in Queens, where a detachment of Marines marched with the local Marine Corps League. Onlookers cheered as Marines old and young passed by with pride and discipline.
I imagine they really must have enjoyed it because every parade that's going on, once the Marines start coming down the street, they all go crazy, cheering and yelling and everything else like that. They don't do it for the other branches of the service, but they do it for the Marines.
Afterward, a celebratory dinner was held at the Staten Island Marine Corps League Lodge. Drinks flowed and lips loosened as the retired Marines shared war stories with their younger counterparts.
This is the perks of being a Marine right here. To see how the public really sees us, you know, because there are times when we feel as if though we're not appreciated or, you know, people take us for granted. And it's good to see that the American people still want a Marine Corps and still love the Marine Corps, you know. It gives you a sense of self-worth and self-pride, you know. Fleet Week 2001 belongs to us, and it's like no one else can take that away from us. Not like the hospitality or the love that people show, no one can take that away from us.
PFC Morgan Catha-Garrett, LCTV-10, Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune. MOUT, or Military Operations in Urbanized Terrain Instructors Course, teaches Marines basic urban warfare skills. The participants in this course put their skills to the test at the MOUT facility aboard Camp Lejeune. The MOUT facility is designed to resemble a third world village. The buildings here have complete interiors, some are even fully furnished. This kind of combat environment is expected to become the future of the Marine Corps.
As of right now, approximately 75% of the world's population lives within 200 miles of coastline. Does that apply to the Marine Corps? Very much so. So we need to know how to do this, and they live in urban environments. We need to know how to go in, how to conduct ourselves professionally and proficiently in this type of environment.
Specially designed equipment played a major role in the training.
We've also been using what they call simunition, which is nothing more than a 9mm souped up paintball that projects out of the M16 at 400 feet per second. It definitely is more realistic because you are firing a weapon, it's launching a projectile, and you get hit, you know it.
The Marines taking part in this training will pass on what they have learned to their units.
And the sooner we can get this word out, the sooner we can get this gear out to the battalions out there, the better off the Marine Corps will be.
Like the world we defend, the Marine Corps is always changing. By training here at the MOUT facility, Marines ensure readiness for close quarters combat. For LCTV-10, I'm Private First Class Morgan Catha-Garrett. The aircraft carrier USS Kennedy recently sailed to New York City with a unique cargo, Marines, and with a unique mission to showcase modern military techniques and technologies. The Marines, who were chosen from various units at Camp Lejeune, demonstrated their weapons and equipment to the New York public. The event was Fleet Week 2001, and while the Kennedy was in port at Manhattan Island, thousands of visitors came aboard ship every day. Displays included a howitzer, a light armored vehicle, a .50 caliber machine gun, and assorted small arms. Forced reconnaissance showed off the tools of the sniping trade. One station was provided for the children who came on board. LCTV-10 asked youngster Hunter Vigno his opinion of the Marines.
I think they're cool.
In addition to the public tours, several private tours were given to distinguished visitors, such as the United Nations military advisors. Top-ranking members of foreign military services took advantage of Fleet Week to gain a better understanding of U.S. defense capabilities. British Army Major David Hanna was particularly impressed by the LAV.
Well, it's been good to see. Myself and my Russian colleague have been particularly interested to see the light armored vehicle. It's exactly the sort of kit we need more of. If anyone can persuade the American government to send a few of those to peacekeeping operations, they're just the sort of kit that's needed. But it's been good to see.
A group of disabled veterans came from a New York Veterans Administration hospital, which allowed some former Marines to see what today's Corps is up to.
It's Memorial Day, and I'm trying to remember my friends, the ones that didn't make it to become veterans. I'm honoring them, and of course supporting today's Marines too in the work they do, because it continues, it goes on.
Events like Fleet Week bring our civilian and military communities together. It was fun and educational for all concerned. PFC Morgan Catha-Garrett, LCTV-10, Marine Corps Base, Camp Lejeune. The Marine Corps showed its might to one of the largest populations in the world in New York City during Fleet Week 2001. As part of that celebration, Marines from Camp Lejeune marched in a Memorial Day parade in Queens, New York. With them was a detachment of sailors from the USS Shreveport and the Staten Island Marine Corps League, who also provided a color guard for the Sea Service contingent. Former Marine Paul Ryan reflected on the Marines' popularity with the crowd.
I imagine they really must have enjoyed it, because every parade that's going on, once the Marines start coming down the street, they all go crazy, cheering and yelling and everything else like that. They don't do it for the other branches of the service, but they do it for the Marines.
After the parade, everyone was invited to the Marine Corps League social hall for an evening of food and drink. The young Marines were treated to war stories and tales of the old Corps. A Memorial Day ceremony commemorated those Marines who perished while serving their country. The remembrance of death was followed by a celebration of life as the Marines drank to the success of their Corps. Lance Corporal Bennett of 5th Battalion 10th Marines shared his feelings about the Fleet Week events with LCTV-10.
And it's good to see that the American people still want a Marine Corps and still love the Marine Corps, you know. It gives you a sense of self-worth and self-pride, you know, that no one else can take away from you, you know. Fleet Week 2001 belongs to us, and it's like no one else can take that away from us. Not like the hospitality or the love that people show, no one can take that away from us.
The citizens of New York will not soon forget the faces and deeds of these bold young Americans. And New York will never be far from the hearts of these Marines. Until next year, this is PFC Morgan Catha-Garrett, LCTV-10, Marine Corps Base, Camp Lejeune. What do 1,000 pounds of cocaine, random Spanish exclamations, and a joint mobile riverine task force have in common? The answer is RAFO, the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Onslow. During Camp Lejeune's recent RIVEX, Riverine Operations Exercise, Headquarters and Support Company 2nd Tank Battalion served as the opposing forces. Their leader, known as El Matador, was played by Major Craig Streeter.
They needed a bad guy. They needed some bad guys to exercise the Marine Corps force. They put the call out for anyone that was interested to be the bad guys. I wanted to do my company field exercise. They needed a bad guy. The two just came together and it was a good match.
RAFO consisted of elements scattered all around the New River. Their mission was to behave like the well-armed, drug-running revolutionary militias of certain South and Central American nations. Armed with a handful of Spanish slogans, they staged a series of protests against the U.S. military presence in the region.
You filthy Americans! Ah!
LCTV-10 spoke with one of these bitter partisans.
Pretty much we be kicking the Marines. Everybody says Marines are badasses, right? They're nothing because, I mean, they're scared of us. I mean, we ambushed them this morning. Please, man.
The company's scout platoon, in conjunction with Special Operations Training Group personnel, commenced trafficking mock cocaine through the New River using rigid raiding crafts. MAGTF elements on patrol stopped and searched these boats for arms and controlled substances.
Hey, they threw something overboard. Quit moving on the boat! Can't reach it.
Can't reach it.
Hey! Sit on your ass!
My RAFO forces, my cells, were where they needed to be, when they needed to be there. I think the Blue Forces got good training, aggressing my guys, planning a riverine operation against my guys. It was also a great exercise for my guys, getting out in the field, doing those infantry skills that we wanted to practice, and I don't mind saying it was a lot of fun too. So,
The revolution has been put down for now, but the next time Marines call upon a worthy enemy, perhaps RAFO will again rear its head. PFC Morgan Catha-Garrett, LCTV-10, Marine Corps Base, Camp Lejeune. Amphibious operations are the premise for the Marine Corps' existence. That's why the Marine Corps is leading the way in developing a new kind of warfare, riverine. During Camp Lejeune's recent riverine exercise, or RIVEX, an inter-service warfighting team took control of the New River. Major Craig Streeter, one of the coordinators of this event, explains.
There's something called the Joint Mobile Riverine Force that will be stood up in the event that we need a Marine Corps fighting force, Marine Corps Navy joint force to execute riverine operations.
A MAGTF-sized element, operating from the USS Wasp, established a mobile riverine base in Mile Hammock Bay. From there, patrols and amphibious vessels worked their way upstream, depositing vehicles and troops at strategic locations. With assistance from Small Crafts Company, Marines deployed in riverine assault crafts to create a series of checkpoints on the river. Meanwhile, the Special Operations Training Group worked with H&S Company, 2nd Tanks, to offer a convincing maritime foe. These Marines learned the proper procedures for operations involving the rigid raiding craft. One of these insurgents, Lance Corporal Jason Morgan, offered us some details.
We've run drugs up and down New River. That's our whole thing. We're a drug cartel, and we've been running drugs, getting stopped by the Coast Guard and the Marine rack boats, getting boarded, stuff like that, and they're, seeing if we have drugs, all that. Been fighting back a little bit, trying to talk some Spanish to them. Muchos drogas.
Though the training had its sticky spots, all agree that RIVEX is a necessary and realistic portrayal of likely future conflicts. This training evolution is planned to become an annual event. PFC Morgan Catha-Garrett, LCTV-10, Marine Corps Base, Camp Lejeune. This is the Marine Corps' Mount facility. Here, Marines prepare for the urban combat environments which will almost certainly be seen in future conflicts. The facility is constantly being upgraded to improve the quality of the training that takes place here. Master Sergeant Hoiston, the staff NCOIC of the facility, spoke about some of the recent additions.
We are in the process of taking this facility above and beyond a big lot with 31 empty buildings in it, and we have a great deal accomplished in the last 6 months. We also have a lot more in the works as well. For example, this vehicle here, we have 9 other vehicles placed throughout the village in different locations in a different state to help emulate or simulate what a mountain environment might be looked at with vehicles that have been burned out, flipped upside down, and gone through battle.
These new piles of rubble add another tactical dimension to the training.
In an urban environment, after 5 minutes of war, they're going to have to deal with the rubble and all the criterias and especially unique things when it comes to tactics to be able to gain a foothold within the rubble or a rubble building and to be able to assault it and clear it from the enemy. Now I'm standing on top of 3 track vehicles we have located throughout the mound facility. These are old M113 personnel and tow dragon variants that we placed for the units to use for training.
The intent of all these additions is to develop the facility's realism. Ideas for new changes are always welcome.
We don't have the market cornered in all the ideas, and some of the best ideas in the Marine Corps come from these Lance Corporals who are actually in here training.
And the training continues as Marines prepare for that unseen war lurking beyond the horizon. Hopefully what happens here will save lives. PFC Morgan Catha-Garrett, LCTV-10, Marine Corps Base, Camp Lejeune. With the summer sun comes summer fun. That's one reason Marines flock to Camp Lejeune's Onslow Beach this time of year. But even more important than fun is safety. The Onslow Beach Lifeguard Detachment recently held a class to educate beachgoers on beach safety. Staff Sergeant Dowdle, Beach Staff NCOIC, explains the day's events.
Today what's going to happen, I'm going to have, besides the normal introductory, I'm going to have one of my section leaders for the lifeguards give a little class on the do's and don'ts of Onslow Beach, what we expect out of the patrons that come out here to visit our beautiful beach, to include what they expect out of us. I'm also going to have one of our duty corpsmen, HM3 Daly. He's going to give basic first aid class. Then we're going to give a small demonstration on a beach rescue. Pulling people out of the water is nothing real detrimental. Every now and then you'll get underage people out here. They'll get caught in rip currents or rip tides, or you'll have people out here, they'll have too much alcohol, they'll go out in the surf and they'll get themselves in trouble.
When a victim is spotted, the lifeguard in the chair gives a signal and 2 rescuers rush into the water. The victim is panicking, swallowing water, and beginning to tire. When the lifesavers finally arrive, the victim has already passed out. They place an orange flotation device under the victim to keep his head above water, and the rescuer pulls the victim to shore. Once the victim is brought to the shoreline, the lifesavers perform rescue breathing if necessary.
Breathing now. Breathing.
The victim is secured to a rescue board and carried away for further medical treatment. The Onslow Beach Lifeguard Detachment is always on duty. To contact them, call 450-7247. PFC Morgan Catha-Garrett, LCTV-10, Marine Corps Base, Camp Lejeune. We've all wished for easy solutions to those little problems in life. Now, for Marines and sailors everywhere, things are about to get a whole lot easier. The Office of Naval Research is launching a new program designed to let service members submit proposals for new research and development. It's called Tech Solutions. 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force Science Advisor Ken Felcher told us what this program promises.
Tech Solutions is a method by which Office of Naval Research can provide funding to Marine Corps requirements as they're identified by just regular Marines in the field and the operational forces.
There are several dozen projects being worked on right now, one submitted by a Marine Corps command. The 26 MEU wants to downsize its Forward Command Element communication suite from the truckload of equipment that it is now to about the size of a suitcase. According to Mr. Felcher, proposals like this one ensure that the Navy's research dollars are better spent.
Tech Solutions program can benefit the Marine Corps as a whole because it can allow Marines to access the R&D community, the scientists and engineers that provide support for the operational forces every day, and apply their knowledge and know-how to some of the problems that Marines are seeing in the field.
The Tech Solutions project is currently in a period of review following its introductory phase. In August, it will be reactivated, this time for good. If you have a technology-related problem that needs to be addressed, access the Tech Solutions website at techsolutions.navy.mil. Remember, the Office of Naval Research is there for you. PFC Morgan Catha-Garrett, LCTV-10, Marine Corps Base, Camp Lejeune. If you checked into Camp Lejeune within the last few years, you've been to the Consolidated Issue Facility. This is where all Camp Lejeune Marines go for their 782 gear. What not all Marines know is that SIF hasn't always been there. Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Higgins, the 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force Material Readiness Officer who masterminded the facility, tells us how gear issue has changed.
The SIF is actually a homegrown initiative within 2MEF and Base Logistics that started in 1996. The purpose was to get 782 gear, to get that out of the hands of individual battalions and squadron supply sections and have it maintained in a central repository.
Last year, all operations of the SIF were contracted to Lyon Industries, a corporation specializing in supply. The facility's Marine Corps liaison, Mr. Frank Slade, says these civilian employees replace Marines who used to work there.
I'm hiring civilians now. I'm paying them a lot less. I don't have to worry about some of the benefits that the Marines get. I don't have to worry about the training evolutions and the challenges that I had with Marines. I can keep the people here 8 hours a day. They don't have to run to the company to take care of different items that the normal Marine has to do.
This facility services the entire 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force. Things have come a long way since the day of a cartridge belt and a couple of canteens. The gear that Marines use is ever increasing both in variety and in complexity.
There's a lot of Marines, we got new equipment coming out, so a lot of Marines don't understand the new equipment. They haven't seen it because we don't train with it. My personnel can go through it with them, can explain the parts, can even assist them in putting the equipment together so then they can operate.
Lyon Industries brings with it the capability of repairing damaged gear in order to extend its lifespan.
Thus far, they have salvaged in repair $211,000 in equipment, which normally units, if it was still in their hands, would have turned into DRMO for disposal purposes.
The Camp Lejeune SIF is the first of its kind, but plans are in motion to spread the concept to every base in the Marine Corps.
The SIF concept is the way to go. It's a true success story here at Camp Lejeune. It has been and will continue to be. So come on down, come on see us.
Mr. Slade says Marines who come through SIF have been overwhelmingly pleased with the efficiency and quality of the service they receive here. PFC Morgan Catha-Garrett, LCTV 10, Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune. Within Camp Lejeune are a vast array of training areas. Keeping track of all these areas is no simple task. That responsibility goes to a small unit called Range Control. Before any unit uses a training area, they must first make a reservation here. Gunnery Sergeant Willie Burns, Range Control Chief Scheduler, remarked on the importance of range control.
Without range control training, it wouldn't exist. It would be a total massive chaos. And what I would like to try and reiterate is that if you could, please possibly get your range request in as soon as possible.
Hundreds of units train on Camp Lejeune every day. In order to keep track of all this activity, a constant staff NCO duty officer is maintained in a post called Blackburn. Blackburn monitors all live fire and aircraft activities on base 24 hours a day in order to prevent dangerous conflicts.
What we do is we keep track of all the units on the entire base. It's required by base order that when any unit is out in one of the training areas, that they contact Blackburn so we know where they're at.
Range inspectors serve as Blackburn's forward support element. The inspector team is composed entirely of retired Marines and has the mission of ensuring units use the ranges properly. Inspector Scott Brenneman told us what he has to do to start off each unit in the morning.
Basically, what we'll do is once we hit the range or come upon the range, we'll request to see their range cards to make sure that they're authorized to run that particular range. Once we've verified the card, we want to make sure that the weapon systems that they are firing that day, they're authorized to fire on that range.
Support of units training in preparation for deployment is Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune's sole purpose. Range control is probably the most important element in making this training possible. PFC Morgan Catha-Garrett, LCTV 10, Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune. The Marine Corps is always striving to stay abreast of changes in technology and society. As part of this ongoing effort, a seminar was held recently at the Swansboro Rotary Club Civic Center to educate the 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force senior logisticians. The week-long course focused on supply chain management and was taught by Penn State professors. One of the coordinators of the seminar, Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Keeler, told us how the Marine Corps is studying the best ideas the civilian world has to offer.
One of the things we're doing is we want to partnership with academia to further educate, our logisticians, so that we can be, the leader on the way logistics is being transformed in the world.
During the course, lectures were given by top faculty from Pennsylvania State University, including Professor John Coyle.
What we're attempting to do in this particular program is bring to the Marines a view of commercial best practices as the best companies in the United States utilize and implement these strategies and tactics to improve their overall efficiency and effectiveness.
The business practices covered are those that have created massive successes in today's fast-paced economy. Captain Lori Kersulik, action officer for the seminar, remarked on the need to stay competitive in an ever-accelerating world.
Basically, in the last year, we've had more changes than we've had in the last decade. And that's just how fast our society is changing with technology and everything. So you start off the class saying we're living in a world of constant change and we need to embrace that change and run with it.
The purpose of the course is to introduce these Marines to the concepts involved, to create an atmosphere where change is possible.
And once we tease their mind with what the possibilities are, then they go out and that makes the Marine Corps better. The warfighter then, therefore, depends on us, knows that, hey, all I got to do is ask my logistics officer, ask my supply officer, ask my dispersal. The possibilities are endless.
The Marine Corps is leading the way in logistics education as the first military service to implement such a course. The intro to supply chain management will be repeated elsewhere in the Marine Corps. PFC Morgan Catha-Garrett, LCTV 10, Marine Corps Base, Camp Lejeune. Marines and sailors of the 26th Marine Expeditionary Unit, Special Operations Capable, stationed at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, recently took off for their routine 6-month deployment to the Mediterranean Sea. Local and national news media were on scene to provide coverage of the first Marines deploying since the September 11th tragedy. The commanding officer of the 26th MU, Colonel Andrew Frick, was on hand for questioning.
Well, this is my 7th deployment, and they're all different in their own way. This is a routine, scheduled deployment. To the best of my knowledge, we're going to go out, we're going to do our exercise schedule as previously done. There may be some modifications, but to that effect, I have no idea what we're going to do other than that we'll go out and do sustained operations for 6 months.
It was an emotional goodbye for service members and their families, as most deployments are. But the wake of recent terrorist actions against the U.S. made the farewell more difficult than usual. Many of these Marines and sailors were leaving behind loved ones who they knew they never might see again. Corporal Mario Wade explained his sacrifice for the cause of freedom.
Girlfriend and family and friends, brother. I miss them, my girlfriend and my mother and all them.
But this Marine seemed unapprehensive in the face of an uncertain future.
I'm not really worried. They got an understanding of what I'm doing, so I'm not really worried. We have a really good talk.
There are about 2,200 Marines and sailors in the 26th MU. Some of the service members were bused from Lejeune to Morehead City, where they boarded the USS Shreveport. Others were flown from WPT Hill Field out to the USS Baton, the flagship of the Expeditionary Unit. At Risley Pier, a fleet of LCACs ferried Marines and their heavy gear out to the USS Whidbey Island, the third ship in the MU. Throughout this evolution, the newscasters gave the Marines evidence that the nation is watching. They are now underway on what may very well be the most historic float in the MU's history. PFC Morgan Catha-Garrett, LCTV 10, Marine Corps Base, Camp Lejeune. Major General Martin Berndt officially opened the new 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force Simulation Center building with a ribbon-cutting ceremony. Deputy to the Assistant Chief of Staff, G7, Butch Preston, was on hand for the ceremony and told us about this important transition.
The ceremony this morning was an official ribbon cutting to open the building. It was a way for General Berndt, the MEF commander, to come over and thank those that were instrumental in actually getting us into a modern facility.
Following the event, General Berndt and his staff were treated to a tour of the facility. The purpose of the simulation center is to allow unit staffs to refine their strategy and operating procedures in a cost-efficient training environment. Mr. Preston says the experience Marines gain here makes real field exercises more rewarding.
The simulation center is it's kind of like a wargaming center. Its chief function is to train Marines and the staffs to be able to execute missions. And it's a combat strategy type tactical decision-making model.
We have maquette shelters outside. They're metal shelters that we have put many of them together that goes anywhere between 24 foot by 20 foot was normally where we will stick a battalion COC. If we're having a regimental exercise, then the regiment is outside and all the battalions are inside in what we call response cells. And the company commander tells the terminal operator, move this unit, and gives them actual grid coordinates. And the terminal operator puts the commands into the computers.
The Sim Center is part of an ongoing effort to incorporate information technologies into military operations and to reduce the cost of training. Command and control is a prime aspect of any warfighting campaign. In order to practice the skills necessary to exercise command and control, the 2nd Marine Division recently held a communications exercise in conjunction with Exercise Rolling Thunder. A division tactical command post was established at Camp Lejeune to communicate with subordinate units, including the 10th Marine Regiment at Fort Bragg.
If the 2nd Marine Division ever gets the call to deploy, the division TAC would be the first ones to go, after some security is there obviously, to set up command for the division. This is not a unit that would be on the front lines. These guys are behind the front lines, maintaining command control for the forward elements, for the infantry divisions, for the artillery regiments, not divisions. They're the ones coordinating, make sure everyone knows their part of the pie, where they are, what their responsibilities are, who's on their left, who's on their right, and make sure they're passing information effectively.
The tactical command post, known as the Division TAC, includes elements from Recon Battalion, Cherry Point, the Fire Support Coordination Center, and several other units within the division and without. The TAC is fully mobile and includes an infantry security force.
And you have a bunch of people coming together who don't play together very often. And when they're together, we have a job to do. And this is a chance to practice that job before we do it in real time and make sure everyone knows what's going on, make sure they know what their mission is, and they get to run through it a few times to actually execute that mission. And hopefully, with enough practice, the experience gained will allow them to execute properly in time of war and effectively.
In a real combat situation, senior division personnel would make tactical decisions from this command post. But for now, it's training as usual. PFC Morgan Catha-Garrett, LCTV 10, Marine Corps Base, Camp Lejeune. The G10 impact area of Camp Lejeune recently came alive with the first naval gunfire on base in over 20 years. The purpose was to test the feasibility of using Camp Lejeune to practice shore fire control. Every Marine Expeditionary Unit includes shore fire controllers, Marines on the ground who call in naval gunfire to destroy enemy targets. The USS Yorktown, stationed 5 miles offshore, participated in the test fire and coordinated with the well-trained Navy Marine Corps shore fire control party that led the exercise.
This is one of the few places that they'll be able to get that practice, and we want to make sure, as a county commissioner, from our side, we want to make sure that they have every opportunity to get the training that they need to do the job that they need to do.
Mr. Holt was among a wide array of government representatives and other distinguished visitors who were invited for the event, which took place at Observation Post 5 aboard Vase. The reception to the test fire was positive.
I don't think it's much different from what's already ongoing here in terms of sound and environmental impact or traffic closures. It's just some additional training that the Marine Corps feels that they need to do here, and it seems like it's an appropriate thing to do.
The test was considered a success and will follow with a programmatic environmental analysis of the naval gunfire before the training begins.
Okay, index. Good job, gentlemen. Good job.
PFC Morgan, Catha-Garrett, LCTV 10, Marine Corps Base, Camp Lejeune. Major Plus is a maritime pre-positioning ship commissioned by the Marine Corps to provide logistical support during times of war. It carries aboard it hundreds of combat vehicles, including Humvees, 5 tons, and amphibious assault vehicles, those versatile tractors that form the backbone of Marine Corps amphibious warfighting capability. It was in order to test the plausibility of using the Plus as an amphibious platform that the 3rd Platoon of 2nd Amphibious Assault Battalion's Bravo Company was called to sea. Platoon Commander 2nd Lieutenant Aaron Lloyd told us a little about the Plus and its mission.
Basically what would happen is either a MEU or a MEB would be forward deployed. They'd take down a port or an airfield. We would fly in our personnel to meet the gear which would arrive at the port. They would marry up with our gear, and within, from what I understand, about 2 weeks or so, we would have a fully equipped division with 60 days worth of supply ready to fight on any foreign soil.
The Marines' mission was to offload 8 of the AAVs aboard the ship and land them at Radio Island, a beach near Morehead City. To get them off the ship, the AAVs would have to be accelerated at full speed down this ramp into the water. The end of the ramp stood 4 feet above the water, a distance these experienced Amtrak crews knew was foolhardy. Their main concern was that the tow panel at the rear of the Amtrak would catch on the ramp and be torn off.
If the tow panel caught on the back of the ramp, we'd rip the tow panel off. There'd be a big hole in the hull. We'd take on water really fast.
After some negotiation with the crew, the ramp was lowered a few more feet and the Marines made it off safely. After arriving at the beach, the AAVs were loaded onto trailers and taken to the port of Morehead City, where the new joint venture high-speed experimental vessel lay in wait. The developers of this ship are courting the armed services to contract it for mass production. Master Sergeant Neil Folkrod, combat cargo officer for the joint venture, shared some words about the ship's potential.
If the Marine Corps does get it, I hope they look at it like airlift, because it's definitely not the amphibious fleet. It's not the Gator Navy. It's not that. It's new.
The Amtraks were loaded onto the joint venture to be taken to Jacksonville, Florida for further operations and as a demonstration of the ship's capabilities. The steamship Major Plus remains a tested and proven asset, standing ready for any future Marine Corps operations. PFC Morgan, Catha-Garrett, LCTV 10, Marine Corps Base, Camp Lejeune. The ground pounders know it well. They work in it, sleep in it, roll in it. They love it and they hate it. It's the forests of Camp Lejeune, which pretty much account for the entire base. Absent hails of 50 caliber machine gun fire and artillery shells, one may wonder what keeps this forest and the creatures that lurk in it from overrunning the county. The answer is the Forestry Department of Camp Lejeune. One intrepid forester of the department, Mr. Danny Marshburn, says that his responsibilities are broad.
The forestry program at Camp Lejeune assures that our Marines have a safe and varied habitat in which to train, and mainly a forested habitat. A forest that is 1 year old up to forest that may be in excess of 100 years old. And it may be thick, it may be thin, it may be open, it may be dense, and that's what our Marines need in order to train.
One of the most critical challenges the program faces are infestations of insects. If left unchecked, these infestations could result in profound damage.
We always have southern pine beetles in our forest, but they tend to have population peaks, and at those points is where we really end up having our problems.
Another role of this organization is to coordinate timber harvesting. The logging that goes on here is ecologically sound in that whatever gets cut down is replaced with a new crop of trees. Rather than clear cutting, designated logging areas are systematically marked for thinning. Logging companies that cut down trees marked for preservation incur a stiff penalty.
We normally harvest about $1.3 million worth of timber a year on Camp Lejeune. And what that money does is it goes back into the forestry program for reforestation, for wildland fire control, and various aspects for forest management here on the base.
It's thanks to Mr. Marshburn and his counterparts that Camp Lejeune Marines are able to train in harmony with the wilderness that surrounds us. PFC Morgan, Catha-Garrett, LCTV 10, Marine Corps Base, Camp Lejeune. Marines from Camp Lejeune are currently deployed to Naval Base Guantanamo Bay, Cuba as part of Joint Task Force 160 to take part in detainee operations. Along with soldiers from the 401st Military Police Battalion, many of these Marines are directly involved in the operation of Camp X-Ray, where detainees from Afghanistan are being held. Marine Military Police work inside the camp, while a detachment from 1st Battalion 2nd Marines guards the camp perimeter. Scout snipers stand watch in the wooden towers that encircle the camp. Sniper Sergeant Matthew Lambert of Bravo Company says that his job is to make sure that no one passes the double barrier of concertina wire that surrounds Camp X-Ray.
Our mission is to protect the Marines and MPs working inside the compound. It's also to prevent anybody getting inside the compound, and it's also to prevent the inmates from hurting themselves or hurting other inmates. Well, as Scout Snipers, like you said, we traditionally do long-range shooting things, but we also are very good at precision shootings in very close ranges. And as this compound is a very close-range, small compound, our precision shooting skills are going to come into play in any kind of hostage situation, stress shooting, that kind of stuff.
Lambert is fully confident that he and his Marines can handle any situation that arises.
Now, there's all kind of safety measures designed to make sure they don't get to the gate, and we're an extreme last resort.
Also working at Camp X-Ray is a detachment from 8th Engineer Support Battalion. These Marines are handling a share of the construction needs here along with Navy Seabees and civilian contractors. The structure they are currently working on will serve as an FBI interrogation center. The Marines here are on board for at least 6 months, said JTF 160 Commander Brigadier General Michael Leonard. When the situation is completely under control, other services will step in for the long haul. Reporting from Naval Base Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, PFC Morgan, Catha-Garrett, LCTV 10, Marine Corps Base, Camp Lejeune. Members of the 2nd Marine Division Association visited here in droves recently to commemorate the 2nd Marine Division's 61st birthday. After a brief at the Officers Club given by Major General John Sattler, Commanding General of the 2nd Marine Division, the group headed out to Courthouse Bay to view an amphibious boat raid. The purpose of the raid was to showcase riverine operations, which are exclusive to the 2nd Marine Division. Association member Rotten Ray Kania said that he was glad to return to Camp Lejeune.
Since I was here all those years ago, 50 years ago almost. And I'd like to come back and see the base, see you young fellas, making sure you're standing up to our standards. Not the CG standards, but our standards.
The next stop was the Military Operations and Urban Terrain Facility for a demonstration of the Marine Corps' new martial arts program. Although the techniques may have changed, the basics have not, according to member Eddie Curran.
You know, basically it's still pretty much the same. You know, there's a lot of hard work and a lot of dedication, a lot of wonderful leadership that, you know, brings the Marines to where they are today and feel like they're as strong as they ever were, maybe stronger.
The final part of the day's events was a full-scale urban assault similar to the quarterly capabilities exercise.
I see more mobility than we had. I see more concisiveness than we had. But I can only tell you that I was just tremendously impressed with what I've seen here today, and very proud of what I've seen here today. Okay?
The following day began with a memorial service to honor those who fell while serving the division. Afterwards, active duty and retired Marines alike filled the Getchie Memorial Fieldhouse for a rededication of the division's battle colors.
We've been treated very well. We're really happy to be here. The troops are always very gracious about the way they treat us, and we really look forward to this every year coming back.
Though the stands were full of Marines, guidons flew for many units that were not present.
I didn't know you had people spread all over the world, and also how many of you, this is important, how many of you are in 4-hour, 17-hour, and 24-hour standby duty.
Association members will likely return next year for a similar celebration. They encourage all Marines who work within the 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force to join their organization. PFC Morgan Catha-Garrett, LCTV 10, Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune.